I think that right now, where we are from a marketing point of view, that everything is saturated. The world, it's a crowded space. And one of the ways that you can stand out is through podcasting.
Some start a podcast as an experiment. Others treat it as a hobby. But those who truly understand the power of storytelling, like today's guest, turn it into a business tool that builds authority and helps them grow. Welcome to Pod Junction. I'm Sadaf Bainan, and on this show, business leaders share how they use podcasting to grow their brand and connect with their audience. I'm really excited to welcome back Peter Murphy-Lewis today. As the founder of StrategicPete.com and a fractional CMO, he helps CEOs turn marketing chaos into clear strategies that drive growth. But what truly sets him apart is his mastery of storytelling, honed through the years in TV, documentaries, and podcasting. As the host of LTC Heroes, he's built a leading podcast in the long-term care industry, proving that great storytelling isn't just engaging, it's a powerful business tool. Peter, welcome back to the show.
It's an honor. Well, you're one of my favorite podcasters. Everything you and Matt touch is fantastic. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, Peter, you are so kind. Thank you. The last time you were on the show, we covered a lot, but today I want to focus on how storytelling and podcasting work together as a powerful tool for business growth. I don't mean just content, but for building authority, deep connections, and real impact. So with everything that you have going on, from media projects to business ventures, where does podcasting fit into your bigger strategy?
I think of podcasting as kind of the gateway to long form storytelling. And I love where you said that, this isn't just, I don't remember your exact words, but this isn't just another marketing motion. This is something that has an impact on pipeline. Any strategist, any chief marketing officer, any person who's interested in account-based marketing, anyone in the revenue team, a sales team should be thinking that this is a place where you can create a relationship. In this difficult time where we don't know what's happening with SEO, Google algorithm updates, social media, you have 3 to 6 channels that you should be on as a brand. You don't know what's happening with your website, the deep and dark social. You don't know how your people are coming to you. Mm-hmm. I can tell you that if someone listens to you for 15 to 20 minutes you're getting in between their 2 ears, that long form storytelling, you're going to have an impact on what they think about you and your brand. It is the easiest, most effective, most affordable, most impact that you can have if you are a business that sells a high ticket product in impacting how people think about you.
That's incredible. Peter, how did you come across this? Did this just kind of evolve? As you started doing it, you thought, actually, this is working? Or was it a light bulb moment? What was it?
So it went from not knowing if it would work to working very quickly and then having a domino effect. Okay. I'll give you the abbreviated version. So I started off with a podcast in 2021 and I had a huge imposter syndrome. I knew that I was the dumbest person in the room and I wasn't comfortable. So interviewing kind of my ICP or my ideal customer profile, I didn't feel comfortable. I was in healthcare. It was hard to talk an interview without fumbling around. And I just realized over time, if you're okay being curious, people will forgive you for your ignorance. And if you're good at asking questions, then you can create a relationship without being the smartest person. And when it started to click was when I started to realize when I would turn off the record button, these people that I were interviewing were, large business owners, presidents of different state associations inside of my industry, healthcare. These people would stay on the phone with me for another 5 or 10 minutes. And that meant that they were enjoying the conversation, that they were going to share it out. I saw them start to share it. And then all of a sudden, I realized that I was going to get into state conventions, and they started to ask me to bring my podcast equipment to the state conventions. Then they asked me to be a keynote speaker. And the extra thing when I started to put everything together is I would, right before I would hit record, I would say to the person, I said, you can pitch yourself all you want in this podcast. I know that you're legit. You're doing a favor to your audience to talk about how great you are. when we turn off the recording, do you mind if I ask you some questions because we're in the same industry and I need your advice? And that little prep work really made it simple for me to ask them afterwards what I was doing, who they could introduce me to, what did they thought of my product, where I was positioned inside of the market space.
Yeah. So how long did you do that for?
The podcast, within 5 months, had me being invited to conventions. Within 8 months, I was a keynote speaker. Wow. And, we started to see the impact on our pipeline after the very first convention I went to, because we would have the salesperson sit next to me and everyone would come over and say, who's the podcaster? What are they talking about? They come see their friends, and the salesperson would just be able to have an icebreaker right there.
That's incredible. You were saying earlier about how they would stay on the phone with you. I was thinking it's because you mentioned about being curious. And I guess as you're being curious and you're asking that, you have genuine interest in what they're doing, you're probably unearthing some things that they possibly hadn't vocalized before, because everyone in their industry, there's some things that are just unspoken because everyone knows them. But when you're asking questions from the outside, I guess it gives them a chance to talk about some things that they don't normally. Would that be right?
Yeah, I think it allows them to talk about some of the intangibles to somebody who's not an expert, and they get to dumb it down. And it also gets to show them being more human, more authentic. So a little bit less industry jargon. I don't think that my success in podcast is the way that most people think that you should approach it. But I can tell you it's the easiest way, right? That for me to have spun up and be smart in the healthcare industry could have taken me 2 or 3 years. So if I would have waited, that means my pipeline would have also had the exact same delay. And being helpful, being curious, being someone just good at having a conversation like you and I right now was sufficient to have a successful podcast.
So were you then, is that all you were focused on in that time? Just
if I had to explain what my playbook was from the beginning that was very, very good, is I tried to find one thing that my guests were particularly great at, or a playbook or something that they have done that they could explain it step by step, that I was turning their content into evergreen material. So if you're not a marketer, that means I'm trying to get someone to give me their 7-step playbook for hiring, or their 5-step playbook for finding investments, or their 10-step playbook for improving culture, and then turn that into a podcast. I'm helping this guest write that 40-page PDF book that they always wanted to do on what they're an expert at, but then I'm giving away to the rest of the industry. It's a win-win for everybody.
That's really cool. I really like that. And especially as you say, step by step, it gives you content and helps you understand what they're talking about. And as you say, it gives them a chance to put it, or to create a book or whatever it is they wanted to do with that information to actually get it down. That's very cool.
Well, I knew that I didn't want just a fluffy podcast of people talking about their lives, because I sensed that no one would listen to it other than their staff, because the CEO would send it to their staff and then their mom. But if I could get the CEO to talk about some great challenge that he or she had overcome in the last year or two, and then walk me through and how to do it, so it makes it actionable, that was going to be helpful to lots and lots of people. And it made them look good, right? It's that 30-page PDF that somebody on their marketing team didn't think about doing. And it made it evergreen enough that you got, lots and lots of plays even after it was launched.
That's really cool. Peter, I always learn so much from you. How does storytelling fit into this then?
Well, this is new to me, so I don't have this well polished. Okay. In the last year, I have produced and directed and hosted 3 documentaries. Specifically documentaries that came from the podcast. So, I mentioned I started doing podcasts. Then I got invited to take my podcast equipment and cover people live at the trade show. Then I got invited as a keynote speaker, Then I got invited to do a documentary. And the documentary is called People Worth Caring About. And all I do is I highlight the staff, their mission, their passion of these different industries. Right now, I'm only in the healthcare industry, but soon next year, I expect that I'll be in another industry. It might be fishing, it might be agriculture, it might be waste management. And I get to tell the story of amazing companies. So I only work with great companies or great industries who need to control their narrative. And I don't think that it's any different than podcast. It's just adding video to it and a little bit more editing. And I think that storytelling is something that I discovered late in life, putting together the dots of all the different things that I've done. Before I did tourism when I was 27 years old, my first company, and I was teaching people about South America through the stories of locals in South America. I wasn't telling you about monuments. I was storytelling. I just didn't know it. And then over time, finally ended up finding something that ends up, I just learned the term in the last 6 months, which is, storytelling. And I didn't realize that I'd discovered this new niche. So, I mean, I don't know where I'll be in 6 months, but I wouldn't be where I am if it weren't for podcasting.
That's really cool. One of the documentaries that you talked about, I've watched one of them. It's really, really good. I'd love to know which one, do you have, I guess you can't say which is your favorite, but which one were you most drawn to?
Well, healthcare, I think, would be the answer to start off. And I was drawn to it from a human point of view because when I got into long-term care, into the private equity kind of turnaround project that I was invited to be the vice president of marketing for, I didn't realize I was going to immediately find a connection related to the fact that my grandparents had been in long-term care. So I started falling in love with the industry because of how important my grandparents were to me and how were the caretakers. So I think what makes this job so enjoyable for me and has an impact on me and the viewer is the fact that I've fallen in love with the people who are telling me their story. And I think it goes back to you just asked me beforehand, or we were talking about what I thought my secret methodology was. It's just being curious. If you're curious in other people's life, that's going to make you likable and want people to talk to you when you turn off the record button.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really about, I was talking to someone else about this earlier today, not storytelling per se, but as you're speaking, it's coming back to me that it's really about becoming a student of the person that you're talking to and really understanding what it is that, like, how they see things through their lens and how they've had those experiences. One
of the reasons that I love storytelling, and in part, one of the children of storytelling is podcasting, is that I think it's the easiest, fastest way for you to establish authority. And you're not going to do it through a blog. You're not going to do it on LinkedIn in one post. You're not going to do it in Instagram in one post, right? And I always think of the example for as myself as a client. Yesterday, I listened to a podcast episode of a gentleman who's a YouTube consultant. And he was on a podcast that I hadn't listened to podcast in a year or two. It was about digital nomads and doing their businesses abroad. And I listened to it. And the podcast host, the podcast guest, his name is Shane. I got off the podcast listening to it. I listened to it again, and I went immediately to his page and signed up for a demo. His SDR, his sales development rep, told me that it was going to cost over $4,000 just to get 1 month of consulting. And I said, sign me up. Wow. In one podcast of 45 minutes, I immediately signed up. If he would have jumped the SDR, I would have signed up. I would have given my credit card yesterday.
I love that. So what was it about it that was so compelling?
It's that he explained in a very simple way how everybody could take his methodology and implement it themselves. Now, I don't want to implement it myself. I have enough money to pay him so he holds my hand. I want it done with you. I can't afford done for you.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it done by myself. I want it done with you. And that's why I'm going to hire him. I think if you're doing anything over, $2,000 to $4,000 for any type of service or product, it's the best way to establish authority.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. Peter, what's been the biggest challenge in using storytelling to make your podcast a growth driver in your business?
I think that the biggest challenge for using a podcast or a documentary for growing the business is probably the operational side. So the first podcast I did, I outsourced it to a podcast agency. the next podcast that I'm about to launch, I'm going to outsource to a podcast agency. Getting outside of that kind of prospecting and creating the one pager and getting people booked and then doing the editing, I outsource all of that. So I'd say that's my biggest challenge, but I think I made the right decision in making sure I found a good agency to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's about playing to your strengths and what capacity you have, right? So tell us about this new podcast that you're launching.
It's around the documentary. It's going to be a podcast in the long form storytelling space. I'm not certain of the name. It might be the same name as the documentary that I've trademarked. People worth caring about. I'm excited. I have a co-host who's been in the documentary process with me, and I think that it'll be launched by July or August.
That's great. Congratulations. So Peter, have you then, so with this new podcast, with the long form content, with storytelling, are you doing this because you've seen a direct link between great storytelling and business results?
Yes, I'm doing it because of that. I'm doing it from a human point of view because I like talking to people who make a difference with their staff. And the best way to do that is through a podcast. If I go knock on your door, you're going to think I'm a salesperson. If I send you a cold email, you think I'm a salesperson. If I want to create a relationship with you right away where I make your company, your staff, and your leadership look amazing, it's a podcast. So I wouldn't do it if it weren't going to help out my business. But I also wouldn't do it if it weren't about building a true relationship, because why would I spend 2 hours a day talking to a microphone with a person I don't know unless I'm interested in them and their story?
So you're saying how sometimes it's hard to get people to respond. What's your experience been then? Like when you say, look, I want to have you on the podcast, I want to get to know your story. Are people quite eager then to have that conversation with you, or have you had some no's?
My recommendation for the startup is just record 5 podcasts with people that you already know and you feel comfortable with, but you're interested in. You don't have to structure it. You don't have to fabricate it. Maybe think about 5 topics that you know that they're great at or that you admire them for, and then just start there. And if you never publish the podcast, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about the no's. Once you land 1 or 2 good interviews, that's going to be enough assets. It's going to be enough quality material for you to get it out. And then you're not going to get very many no's. I didn't start off with any big players. I didn't start with presidents or CEOs until I probably had 10 podcasts underneath my belt. As far as I know, I didn't get any no's. I might have got some people said, let's wait and see, or my schedule's busy, but they ended up coming around 6 months later once they realized that it was quality.
Yeah, great. So what if someone, as you said, just starting out, but then wanted to add a bit more storytelling because it works? What would be some tips that you would give them?
Some tips around storytelling. I would, there's, I like to go to Tim Ferriss, and he has some interesting questions on his podcast that start up with good conversations. And he has a book I think it's like Tools for Titans. And he asks these people, what is one habit you have in your life that you think makes you successful? What's one failure in your life that marked who you are? So just go find some simple, interesting questions. Have those in your toolbook. I actually think you should have those anyways. Like if you're going to have friends over tonight for dinner, you don't have to be the person who talks the most in the room to be the person that people are happy that's there. Ask the most interesting question. You're going to be invited back to drink nice red wine tomorrow and the next day. So probably all of us should get better at listening. If you want to get better at listening, come up with good questions. That's where I would start. And you don't need to go listen to Tim Ferriss. Use your AI tool. Say, what are 15 interesting questions that I could ask, Sadaf today, and it'll help you come up with, and it'll look up your history and your profile, and it'll find something else.
Cool. Thank you. How do you see your podcast evolving to serve your business even better with the use of storytelling? Yeah.
I hope with the podcast that I'm going to be able to target the people who need to share their story, not the people who are already on the podcast circuit. So
Right.
my goal is I'm going to target people who have great companies on applications like Glassdoor, organizations that have great reviews in different places but might have a bad reputation in the news, and I want to help them control it. So my goal, and I have a friend who's helping me position our documentary on Amazon Prime. And what
Okay.
she loves about the story is that I'm going after underappreciated industries like nursing homes and helping them tell the story when no one in traditional media wants to let them get it out. We want to trash them because we're afraid of aging, we're afraid of memory, we're afraid of Alzheimer's, we're afraid of death. And so we blame all of our fears on these caretakers and giving them a voice. That's where I want to take the podcast. It's going to be a more 101 version of what my documentary is, because my documentary is done with high-end broadcast quality cameras with a TV production company. And it costs over $100,000 documentary. With the podcast, you can hire an agency for $2,000 to $5,000, $2,000 to $10,000 a month, and you could get the story out even faster.
That's amazing. Like, for the people whose stories you're telling, that's just really incredible, isn't it? To have some light, because I think a lot of the people you're talking about are underserved, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, I mean, from a human point of view, I always tell people when I'm in front of the camera as a documentary or as a TV or on a podcast, I always feel like I'm leaving something for my son. My son's 8 years old, and it's way easier for me to jump on and interview somebody that intimidates me if all I have to do is impress my son. What's going to impress my son? Was I nice? Did I ask good questions? Was I sincere? Did I listen? And for some reason, that allows me to be a lot more relaxed.
That's very cool. I love that perspective. Am I impressing my kids? Yeah. I'm gonna use that one.
Well, you don't get nervous easily, so I don't think you can use my tricks.
I think I might do. So, Peter, do you think businesses that embrace storytelling over those that focus on just information, say, do you think they are more successful?
I think that right now, where we are from a marketing point of view, that everything is saturated. The world, it's a crowded space. And one of the ways that you can stand out is through podcasting. I just think that it's very, very simple. Every single client that I try to help out with, and I'm usually working as a fractional chief marketing officer with clients that are doing somewhere between $3 and $15 million a year in annual revenue. The very first thing that I try to figure out is, where's their ICP and how can I talk to them on a podcast? That's either pitching their CEO or their subject matter expert on podcasts, or is it time for us to have our own podcast where we could bring in our happy customers and make them look better, and bring in our prospects and make them look better, and we can start a relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think podcasting is just such a powerful marketing tool for any business. It's, there's got so much potential, like even how you're using it now with your documentaries. It's incredible the potential that it has and the scope that it has.
I want to share something small and tactical that I think any non-marketer would still understand and be able to replicate. If you already have a podcast and you're about to give up on it, you can follow this strategy. If you don't have a podcast and you feel that you're behind the times, like all of your competitors started a year ahead of you, don't worry. Go to YouTube and look at the video that you can easily talk about with one of your guests that allows you to talk about your company and your product, and search for it in YouTube. Then go find versions of that question in YouTube and find the videos that have the most amount of views with the least amount of subscribers. Now go do a podcast around that, put that on YouTube, and you're going to get 5,000, 15,000, 25,000 views because somebody didn't know how to take advantage of the video that already got thousands and thousands of views. The reason it doesn't have subscribers is because the audio was off, the thumbnail was bad, or they didn't continue on with the podcast, they gave up. So all you have to do is go do a better version, and you're going to see an impact on your pipeline within 3 to 6 months.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you for that. How did you come across that?
It was from the podcast that I mentioned 20 minutes ago from the guy named Shane. Yep.
Okay.
And I just recorded 2 videos today doing the exact same process. And that's what I'll be doing in my podcast as well. So if you go to my YouTube today, you're going to see 2 videos that were loaded in the last 3 hours following the strategy I just shared with you.
Awesome. Great. Peter, thank you so much. I mean, I love what you've said. It's clear that your podcast isn't just for content. It's a key part of how you connect and how you share your expertise. So it's great.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this and really enjoyed talking about how you use podcasting to grow your business and how you're going to be evolving it and adding another podcast into the mix. And but before we go, Peter, where can people connect with you, learn more about your business, and of course, tune into LTC Heroes podcast?
LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn every single day. I post every single day. Peter Murphy Lewis. I am the only Peter Murphy Lewis on LinkedIn. Go connect with me. Tell me what you liked about this podcast. And I look forward to hearing about your podcast journey.
Awesome. And for everyone listening, I'll drop all the links in the description so you can check it out. Peter, thanks so much for joining me today and sharing your incredible insights with us.
Appreciate it.
And to everyone listening, if today's conversation has got you thinking about how podcasting could help you grow your business, we'd love to talk. From Peter and from me, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.